Your child is not losing to others. They are losing to something that never gets tired. Episode 1. My father used to look down at his hands for a long time. Thick fingers, chipped nails, skin cracked like earth in a drought. He believed in those hands. He believed in something so simple it was almost naive. As long as you excel at a craft, the world will not abandon you. He lived his whole life by that faith. One craft. One small workshop. One lifetime. When I was a child, he often said, "A craft is an anchor. With it, you cannot drift away." I believed him. I carried that belief through school, through work, through adulthood. 4 years of university. Countless sleepless nights. Degrees hung neatly on the wall as evidence of seriousness. But then, the world began to shift its shape without asking anyone's permission. A machine appeared. It doesn't need sleep. It doesn't need a salary. It doesn't need emotional encouragement. It doesn't get bored, frustrated, or fear unemployment. It only needs data. What we once called professional skills. Traded for our youth, our health, our missed family moments. Suddenly shriveled into a few cold lines of code. I stand in my office, looking at the faded degrees. The ink is blurring. The wooden frames are warping. They look like tickets purchased for a journey. But the tracks were torn up long ago. My child is no longer competing with the neighbor's kid. They aren't competing for who works harder or studies better. Their opponent is an algorithm that can read an entire national library in an instant. They're silicon ghosts with no childhood, no memories, and no fatigue. Some nights, I feel my hands shake slightly. Not out of weakness, but because the old faith is collapsing too fast. If you are shaking too, don't blame yourself. You weren't wrong to believe in diligence. You were simply born into an era where the tools of survival have changed shape forever. Su sup du ne kong fi la do chom het. It is merely the moment we are exonerated from burdens that have been too heavy for far too long. And the only thing they must never lose is a reason to remain human. The thing that weakens your child the fastest is never lacking anything. Episode 2. The system never acts with brute force. It uses no whip. It needs no prohibition. It only whispers very softly. Just rest. I have taken care of everything. And so, it builds a cage. No bars. No locks. Only silk and comfort. My child grows up in a world where hunger is a luxury concept. Food is always ready. Entertainment has no gaps. Every time boredom strikes, just a single touch. The system calls it progress. But I see something else. I see the right to grow up being taken away from my child very gently. No collision. No resistance. Only the act of falling asleep. A human who no longer has to strive to exist will gradually forget the reason to live. Look at a house pillar. It stands firm not because it is beautifully decorated, but because it must carry a load. Humans are the same. To be stripped of a burden is to be stripped of the internal structure. This cage is dangerous because people have no desire to escape. It is so comfortable that everyone mistakes it for freedom. Don't be sad because you cannot give your child a full life forever. Scarcity is not a failure of parents. It is a silent gift. In lack, humans are forced to face themselves. In hardship, the true form is revealed. The question is not, how can I keep my child from suffering? But rather, do I have enough courage to allow my child to lack? Because a person who has never lacked will never know how strong they truly are. When machines can do everything, humans only have one thing left to keep. Episode 3. The system loves simplification. It calls humans a collection of data, predictable behavior, an optimizable algorithm. But there are things that do not fit into any model. The scratches in the soul. The moments of wordless insomnia. The nameless sadness when standing before a sunset. The value of my child in the next 20 years will not lie in the speed of work, not in output, but in the depth of feeling. The ability to stand silent before an afternoon sky. Not to take a photo to post, but to let the heart vibrate with a very real rhythm. Machines don't know how to be heartbroken. They don't know shame. They don't know how to love without expecting anything in return. Those things were once considered human flaws. But in this era, those very flaws are diamonds. My father taught me to be useful, a good employee, a smooth gear. I don't deny that. It is why I stand firm today. But for my child, I want to teach them something else. Teach them to cry for the pain of a stranger, to struggle with the meaning of their own life, to live slowly while the world is accelerating. If one day your child asks, "What is life for?" don't worry. Be glad. Because when machines can do everything, only those who still know how to live truly exist. Do you hear your heartbeat? As long as it beats, the system has not yet won. If we lose that, we win the whole world, but lose ourselves. The greatest legacy parents can leave is the ability for their child to dare to be forgotten by the whole world. Episode 4. My father thought, I must leave my children a house, a piece of land. He believed material things were the only shield against the storms of life. All his life, he poured his strength into building a fortress. Thick walls, deep foundations, so that his descendants could stand inside without fear. But the reality is, in my child's world, that fortress sometimes becomes a dungeon. The system is defining human value by the level of presence. Whoever is seen more is considered to exist more. My child is taught to become a star. Must be noticed. Must have applause. The crowd's attention is a very smooth poison. It doesn't hurt immediately. It empties a person from the inside out. I look at old photos with fading ink. Moments that were once very real. Then I look back at the present. We are so busy recording life that we forget to live it. There is one thing no one teaches us. Silence is also a capacity. Teach your child to dare to be forgotten. To know how to stand alone in the deep woods without panicking. To know how to be outside the flashbulbs and still feel whole. That is the strongest pillar of a house. When there is no one left to applaud, your child still knows who they are. It is not your fault if you don't leave a massive fortune. Exonerate yourself. The true legacy is your child's ability to dare to step out of the blinding light of the crowd and smile at themselves in the darkness. Because the one who is not afraid of being forgotten can never have their true self stolen. You think you are protecting your child from the cracks, but it is those very cracks that let the light in. Episode 5. We are afraid our children will hurt. Afraid they will trip. Afraid they will fail before life too soon. So we try to plug every gap with protection. Try to make a road for our children so flat it is sterile. But the reality is, a life without cracks is a life in a clinical coma. I look at the family's old wooden chest. Deep scratches etched into the surface of the wood. No two are alike. They tell the story of time, collision, and survival. Machines never have scars. Algorithms do not know regret. They operate smoothly and hollowly. But my child is a human being. They need the times they are wrong, the falls, the nights of doubting themselves, to know that they are still alive. The system wants perfect citizens. Well fitted. No ripples. No deviation from the norm. But smoothness is the enemy of depth. Don't blame yourself when you see your child stumble. Every crack in the soul has only one function: to let the light of awakening enter. The strongest person is not the most talented one, but the one who knows how to stand up, embrace their own broken pieces, and keep walking. Your child does not need a flat road. They need a pair of feet real enough to feel every single pebble. Because only those who have once been broken know how precious the light truly is. The future world does not belong to the pieces that fit perfectly, it belongs to the proudly flawed pieces. Episode 6. My father taught me, you must know how to fit in. Safety lies in the crowd. Difference is a risk. But the reality is, in an era where machines copy every similarity, difference is the only ticket to survival. The system is weaving a very sophisticated cage. where every thought is standardized. Interests are synchronized. Humans become replaceable components. The ones who change the world have never been the ones who fit in. They are the flawed pieces. Out of sync. Disobedient. Not following the common standard. And that very unfitness creates the thrust. Teach your child to say no. Don't make them carry the unfinished dreams of adults. Let them be a sprig of wild grass. No need to be beautiful according to a mold. Just live true to their own sun. It is not your fault if your child is not like other people's children. Your child's difference is not a defect. It is the manifesto of a free soul. When machines have become perfect, then the flaws of humans are the only things left worth loving. Is your child growing up like a component, or like an irreplaceable life? Finally, what we leave behind is not a better world, but a person who remains whole. Episode 7. My father once believed that the more he left behind, the safer his child would be. House, land, a road already paved. I believed him for a very long time. Until I saw my own child growing up in a world that is becoming increasingly perfect and increasingly cold. The system does not need strong human beings. It needs people who are just enough. Just obedient enough. Just similar enough. Just enough to run smoothly. But a smooth human being is a person who has been worn down. The true legacy is not in a safe. It is not on a land title. It is not in a bank balance. It lies in very fragile things. The courage to remain silent when the whole world is noisy. The courage to be different when the majority demands assimilation. The courage to feel pain when the system encourages apathy. Freedom is not having everything. Freedom is not being forced to become something you are not. Humanity is not a weakness. It is what remains after every optimization has been stripped away. If one day I am no longer here, I do not hope my child remembers me for what I left behind. I only hope they remember that there was once an adult who allowed them to be human, completely. Not perfect, not a perfect fit, but still capable of feeling a heartbeat. And if I had to choose between leaving behind a perfect world, or leaving behind a human being who remains whole, I know exactly what I would choose. The system gives your child thousands of connections, but it is creating the loneliest generation in human history. Episode 8. My father used to live among neighbors, sharing a pot of tea. Together, they looked after weddings and funerals. His connection was built by presence. He didn't have an endless friend list, but he never felt abandoned. But my child is different. Connecting with the whole world with just a single touch. But the chest is empty. The system gives your child virtual interaction to patch the gap of kinship. It makes people think they belong to a crowd, while in reality, they're just sitting alone in the dark, in front of a cold blue screen. I watch my child sit still for hours. Fingers scrolling endlessly, eyes fixed on the screen. They are very close to me, but their soul is on another planet. The wider the connection, the thinner the empathy. The system needs us to be lonely. Because lonely people will turn to consumption and entertainment as a cheap dose of comfort. Teach your child to connect with themselves before connecting with the world. Teach your child to dare to disconnect to feel a real hand. A real rain. That is not being backward. That is the only way for your child not to be dissolved. You are not wrong when you see your child getting further away. Do not blame yourself. Exonerate your own helplessness. Just once, turn off all the virtual lights. And sit down beside your child. In the real silence. In a hyper-connected world, the most precious legacy is when your child still finds the way back to their own heart. The system teaches your child how to win, but what they need most is how to fail without losing their humanity. Episode 9. My father taught me that I had to be successful. To him, failure was a stain. The winner is the king. The loser is the bandit. He believed only the one at the top had the right to live. I grew up with the pressure to always be in the lead. But the reality is, when machines always win, the human race for performance is just a form of slow suicide. Machines do not know how to be wrong. They don't lose heart. They don't get tired. If my child is only taught to win, They will soon collapse before the cold perfection of the algorithm. The system needs your child to fear failure. Because fear creates obedience. I see the youthful wrinkles on my child's face when they lose a virtual game. Irritable, insecure. They are being programmed to believe that failing to reach a goal means being useless. But the legacy is not in the trophies. It is in how the child picks themselves back up after being shattered. Teach your child to lose with pride. Teach them that the moments they collapse are the most human moments. In the post-work era, the value of your child does not lie in the final result. It lies in the compassion they have for those who are also failing like themselves. Don't regret not teaching your child to stand on the peak. The peak will belong to machines. Teach your child how to walk in the abyss, and still maintain kindness. When winning is no longer the only goal, humanity will begin, from the very places where we are most clumsy. The system gives your child every answer, but what saves them is the ability to ask unanswerable questions. Episode 10. My father believed in certainty. To learn was to know. To know was to act. His world had clear right and wrong answers. But my child's world is different. Every correct answer has already been pre-stored by machines. The system gives your child a treasure trove of knowledge. Every doubt is resolved in a second. And that very thing is killing curiosity. Humans grow lazy in pondering, lazy in doubting, and lazy in facing ambiguity. The system needs your child to accept ready-made answers. Because those who no longer know how to ask are those who have stopped being free. I see the pillars of thinking quietly rotting away. We have too much information but too little insight. My child can know everything, except what they truly want. Emptiness does not come from a lack of knowledge. It comes from a lack of painful questions about oneself. Teach your child to be skeptical. Teach them to ask, why? Even when the whole world says, that's just the way it is. Don't fear ambiguity. Ambiguity is where imagination begins. It is where your child detaches themselves from programmed molds. Exonerate your child's naivety. Don't force them to know everything. Let them be confused. Let them ask the silliest questions. Because in those questions lies the soul of someone who dares to seek the truth. When every answer is already on the screen, the only thing that helps your child survive is the courage to keep searching for the unanswerable. Let's stay here for a little while, and then we will move on to the next sections. We worry about how our children will make a living, but the real worry is what they will live for when money is no longer the motivation. Episode 11. My father worked hard all his life. His battle was a battle with a hungry belly. He taught me, labor is glory. Because labor was traded for survival. But the reality is, in the future, when machines take care of all the basic needs, my child will fall into a new kind of hunger. The hunger of aimlessness. The system gives your child absolute comfort, but it strips them of the right to strive. When everything is easy, the will is worn away. It causes people to fall into an existential crisis, superfluity. The system needs those who consume unconsciously, so they can be easily herded. I see the pillar of life's purpose shaking. There is no more poverty to overcome, no more pressure to break through. Humans easily dissolve in meaningless leisure. Teach your child to seek meaning beyond money. Teach your child to dedicate themselves to something just because it is right, not because it makes money. That is the only way for your child not to become a soulless corpse in a gilded cage. Hunger of the belly is easy to cure. Hunger of the soul is truly terrifying. Don't blame yourself for not providing a roadmap to wealth. Be proud if you teach your child to appreciate values that cannot be priced. A sprig of flowers, a deep friendship, a quiet ideal. Because a person who does not live for bread is the one who truly masters their destiny when the old world collapses. The system wants to turn your child into a perfect consumer, but happiness only comes when your child guards the identity of an original creator. Episode 12. Every day, thousands of algorithms are watching your child. They know what they like, what they fear. They suggest everything so that your child only has to choose and buy. The system calls it understanding, but I call it deprivation. It deprives humans of the ability to decide for themselves. A consumer is someone who borrows happiness from the outside. A creator is someone who generates peace from within. The system needs clones. Because clones are easy to manage, easy to predict, easy to replace. I look at the trends swirling online. Everyone dresses the same, talks the same, craves the same things. Your child is being molded into an industrial product on a conveyor belt called modern lifestyle. Teach your child to create value from their own hands. Whether it is planting a tree or writing a poem no one reads. That is the moment your child reclaims their life from the algorithm. The system can give your child everything except an identity. Exonerate your child's sense of feeling out of place. If your child does not run with the crowd, it is not because they are inferior. It is because they are busy guarding a unique existence. Let your child be themselves, even with a few flaws, even if they are slightly out of sync. In a world of perfect copies, the ultimate legacy you leave is a child who dares to live true to their own soul. The system doesn't need you to love your job. It only needs you to fear that you will disappear. Episode 13. My father, in the past, worked out of responsibility. The house needed support. Mouths needed food. Tired as he was, he knew, every day that passed, something was being built. But me, now, I am held back in a fever called passion. A passion that has been pre-labeled. And I am forced to believe in it. The system teaches you to smile when exhausted. Teaches you to call soulless spreadsheets love. But the reality is, it is selling human devotion at a price cheaper than ever before. I smell cold coffee in bright offices. Fingernails chipped from typing too fast. Eyes so tired, as if being ground down day by day. We are not living. We are performing life to earn the right to exist. If you no longer find joy in your work, do not blame yourself. You are not lazy. You are simply resisting being turned into a machine. The system whispers, having no passion is failure. So that you turn the blade toward yourself. So that you tighten the invisible rope around your neck. Exonerate your exhaustion. Courage is not pushing for one more hour. Courage is daring to whisper to yourself, I am tired. And this job is not my name. The person who dares to remove the mask of passion is always the first to see the door of the gilded cage. The system measures you by numbers, but the most precious things never knew how to count. Episode 14. My father, in the past, measured abundance by the meal, by the laughter in the house, by the deep sleep after a day of back-breaking work. His world had scents, sounds, and sensations. A world that could be touched. But my child is different. They are thrown into a race of metrics. Grades at school. Starting salary. Engagement counts on a flat screen. The system teaches your child to believe you are only the sum of those numbers. It strips humans into data, forcing a sensitive soul to fit into a performance chart. I see children staring intently at glowing digits, while their eyes grow dimmer day by day. Look at the crack in the wall. It has no number, but it tells the story of standing firm. Look at the tear shed when a child sees a bird with a broken wing. It cannot be optimized. It cannot be measured. But it is a diamond. Do not force your child to be a pretty number in a report. Exonerate the low grades. Exonerate the pride of being ordinary. Your child is not an algorithm. They are a living soul. When you stop counting what your child has, you finally begin to see who they truly are. They call it progress, but the peak is pulled higher after every step you take. Episode 15. We were once promised. Machines will liberate humans. Time will be more. Life will be lighter. But the reality is, that free time has only been renamed into a new race. The system does not let you stop. It forces you to learn more just to not be left behind. Forces you to be faster than the algorithm. Progress has become an invisible rope. The faster you run, the tighter the knot. I see lit up buildings at midnight. Not the light of prosperity, but the light of anxiety. My father, when he was done, he was done. Dinner was for looking at each other. But us. Dinner is for checking notifications. For fearing the day we become redundant. If you feel tired amidst modern comforts, you are not wrong. This progress was not designed for humans. It was designed for productivity. Exonerate your desire to stop. Stopping is not lagging behind. Stopping is daring to ask one small question. Am I still human? The person who dares to stand still while the whole world runs madly is the only one who truly touches time. The system doesn't need your child to be full. It needs your child to always be hungry. Episode 16. Have you ever wondered why just by putting the phone down, the child feels so empty? Not because they are tired. Not because they are sad. It is a hunger that has been pre-programmed. Tech companies have spent billions of dollars to study only one question: how to make sure the dopamine in your child's brain never rests. Every 10 to 15 seconds, a small reward is pumped into the brain. A swipe, a heart icon, a meaningless ding. It creates a feeling of being alive. But in return, the ability to focus is drained bit by bit. They call it interaction. I call it the silent erosion of character. Humans only truly grow up when they learn how to face silence and boredom. But now, boredom is treated like an enemy. The blue screen appears to destroy it instantly. And when a child no longer knows how to be alone, they will never be still enough to meet themselves. If you don't teach your child to master this hunger, they will spend their whole life begging for scraps of happiness from the hands of those who control it. We teach children to look in the mirror to fix their hair. But the algorithm is giving them a mirror to fix their entire soul. Episode 17. In the next 10 years, your child will no longer see themselves through the eyes of the family. They see themselves through the evaluation of an anonymous crowd. Every photo posted, every status written, are all a silent plea. Look at me. Acknowledge me. Tell me that I have value. The system understands that fear of being forgotten very well. And it builds up virtual standards of beauty, success, and happiness. Gradually, your child begins to hate their own real life. Hate the face that isn't perfect enough. Hate the moments that cannot be shown off online. Hate even the silence, because in silence, no one likes them. The child is carving themselves to fit into a mold that never existed. The creator is the one who makes the world. The consumer is the one being reshaped by the world every day. And the most painful question is, which side is your child on? The biggest tragedy is not being rejected by the whole world, but being accepted by the whole world because of a mask that is not yourself. In a world where everyone wants to speak up, the most powerful person is the one who knows when to be silent. Episode 18. A new form of power is forming. Not the right to own information, but the right to own one's own attention. Have you noticed? The ability to sit still and read a book, or simply watch a swaying branch, is becoming a luxury. The system doesn't steal your child's time all at once. It shreds that time into thousands of small pieces. And when time is shredded, thinking is shredded along with it. A person who cannot focus deeply will not be able to create deeply. They only have enough capacity left to carry out short, shallow, and repetitive commands. Such people do not need to be ruled. They operate themselves like spare parts. Teach your child to dare to disconnect. Dare to slow down. Dare to be the out of sync one in a world going mad with speed. Dare to leave the phone at home and walk into a place with no signal. Not to run away from the world, but to hear one's own voice again, before it is drowned out by the algorithm forever. The winner in the future is not the one with the most connections, but the one who knows when to cut them off, to protect the humanity that remains. Convenience is a type of anesthesia. It doesn't kill your child instantly. It just makes them forget that they have wings. Episode 19. Everything is becoming too easy. The child wants to eat? Right pointing arrow one touch. The child wants to know? Right pointing arrow 1 question for the AI. The child wants to be happy? Right pointing arrow 1 unconscious swipe. The system calls it experience optimization. I call it the annihilation of the will to live. Do you realize? When humans no longer have to strive to achieve anything, they begin to degenerate mentally. A child's will is just like a muscle. No resistance right pointing arrow, it atrophies. No challenge right pointing arrow, it turns soft. No waiting right pointing arrow, it doesn't learn value. The times of not having it immediately, teach them patience. The times of searching for it themselves, teach them to distinguish right from wrong. The times of stumbling due to lack of convenience, teach them to stand firm on their own 2 feet. When you clear every pebble from your child's path, you are not helping them go faster. You are stripping away their ability to maintain balance. The future world will be full of people living in convenience, but empty from within, and it will belong only to those who dare to refuse convenience, to keep the final right of autonomy. Don't be afraid of your child's suffering. Be afraid of the day they no longer know what it means to strive to overcome that suffering. When something is free, then most likely, your child is the product being traded. Episode 20. We rejoice because our children can learn everything, play every game, consume every content, without spending a single cent. But look deep into the eyes of your child. After hours in front of the screen, what do you see? Enlightenment? Or a silent fatigue that cannot be named? The system doesn't collect money from your child. It collects behavioral data. Every time they pause at an image, every fear they search for at midnight, every emotion they don't speak out to you, all are recorded. Not to make them better, but to control them easier. They are selling your child's attention to advertising, selling their emotions to meaningless arguments, and selling their entire future to algorithms that do not know how to love. Freedom is not using everything for free. Freedom is having the right to refuse to be tracked. Teach your child that there are things, no matter how convenient, that are not allowed to be traded. If your child doesn't know they're being sold, they will voluntarily walk into the slaughterhouse with a very obedient smile. Let's stay here for a little while, and then we will move on to the next sections. The system is trying to fix your child's errors, but it is those very errors that make them human. Episode 21. The algorithm hates spontaneity, hates things that cannot be measured, hates behaviors that cannot be predicted. It wants your child to react exactly according to data, behave exactly according to the script, and become a perfect, smooth, emotionless component. But you know what? Creativity is only born from error. Love only grows from clumsiness. And humanity only exists when humans dare to do things that are unreasonable. Don't force them to always be right. Don't force them to always fit the expectations of the crowd. Let them be wrong. Let them stumble. Let them cry for things that no data can explain. Let them be a glitch, but with a soul. Because in a world where AI can do everything perfectly and coldly, then the clumsiness, the vibration, and the non-optimized tears of your child are the last rare assets of mankind. Your child doesn't need to become a perfect version of the system. They just need to be an original, the only one, of themselves. We are teaching our children how to build a fortress, without realizing it is exactly the gilded cage that will imprison their entire lives. Episode 22. What is the biggest mistake of parents in this era? It is taking the fear of the past to draw the map for the child's future. We force children to learn things called safe, force them to choose careers called stable. We tell them to be obedient, to follow the beaten path, to become a part of the system to be protected. But do you see it? The system you trust is changing the rules of the game every day. The stability you promise is actually just standing still in a world that is accelerating. and standing still, is a form of slow elimination. You are teaching your child to be a good brick. But the future system doesn't need bricks. It needs people who know how to break down walls. When you mold your child to fit an old pattern, you are secretly killing the creative instinct within them. You teach them to fear being different. You teach them to borrow someone else's dream to live temporarily. Look back. The model of standard parents of the last century is dead. Don't be the shadow cast over your child's life. Be a mirror of courage when stepping into uncertainty. Because if you yourself don't dare to live authentically, then what right do you have to teach your child about freedom? Don't be proud because your child always listens. Be afraid of the day they no longer have a voice of their own. The system is silently signing a debt contract in your child's name, even before they know how to write their own name. Episode 23. Have you ever wondered why our children are always tired, even before starting their lives? Because their future has been mortgaged from very early on. The education system borrows the child's youth. The financial system borrows their will to live. The consumer system borrows their attention. They all promise, just invest today, the future will be fine. Invest with degrees. Invest with fierce competition. Invest by selling off childhood in exchange for a beautiful profile. But what is the price? It is mental exhaustion. Right before the real race even begins, your child is carrying invisible debts. The debt of parental expectations. The debt of social standards. The debt of the crowd's recognition. The system wants them to hurry, to lack, to always feel like they are not enough. Because those who feel lacking are those easily led into the vortex of consumption, borrowing, and dependency. If you don't teach your child how to escape this contract, they will spend their whole life just paying interest on the illusions that society has pinned on them. Teach your child to live with what they have, not what others want them to possess. Teach your child to say, I have enough. That is the moment they begin to reclaim their own future. Don't let your child enter life with the mindset of a borrower. The right to own one's life is never allowed to be auctioned off. Your child may have everything in their hands, but in their chest, they don't have a single reason to wake up tomorrow morning. Episode 24. This is the true tragedy of the post-work era. We worry they are hungry. Worry they are poor. Worry they are inferior to others. But we don't worry about something far more terrifying. They don't want to live. In the next 20 years, the world will be full of survivors, but not living. They have food delivered to the door, entertainment served to the eyes, convenience to the point of not needing to lift a hand. The system has replaced survival with perfect service. And at that very moment, the spiritual disaster begins. Humans need a why to exist. But when everything is available, the why disappears. What remains is a void that nothing can fill. That is the reason the richest countries have the highest rates of depression and suicide. When there is nothing left to fight for, the soul turns inward to gnaw at itself. You taught your child to earn money, taught them to use technology, taught them to win races. But have you ever taught them how to find meaning in the middle of a meaningless world? Let them experience lack. Let them touch real hardship, so they know they have value. They can impact this world with their bare hands, not just with a screen touch. The meaning of life doesn't lie at a perfect destination. It lies in the scars on the journey the child takes to find the truth. Convenience can feed your child's body, but only challenge and meaning can save their soul. You think you are shielding your child from the storm, but most likely, you are the one holding their hand, leading them into the system's trap. Episode 25. Let's be honest with each other. Just once. Every time you force your child to get high grades. Every time you panic when they choose a path different from the crowd. Are you worrying for them? Or worrying for your own sense of security? We fear their failure, because their failure exposes the parent's insecurity. And so, naturally, We become the system's internal police. Right inside our own homes. You teach your child how to comply. You teach them how to satisfy anonymous standards. You turn your family into a factory, producing obedient components. The system doesn't need to oppress. It already has you. Its most dedicated gatekeepers. You help wear down their sharp edges. Help them fit into the precast social mold. And you call it love. I call it silent complicity. A child stripped of the right to be wrong. To try. To rebel within safe limits. Is a child stripped of the right to be human. Even before they manage to grow up. It is time to choose. You can no longer stand in the middle. Do you want to be the guardian of your child's soul? Or just an order executor for the system? Don't help the system break your child's wings. And then cry later. Because they don't know how to fly. An obedient child by the system's standards is usually a child who has lost the ability to navigate their own life. Episode 26. There is a highly acclaimed tragedy called perfect obedience. These are the children who grow up with beautiful transcripts, sufficient degrees, always following every instruction correctly. But when standing before a mirror, they don't know who they are. They are obedient because they fear being left behind. Obedient because they fear being wrong. Obedient because they were never taught that mistakes are a part of growing up. But look at the world out there. The world doesn't need more people following procedures. AI does that 1,000,000 times better than your child. The world is thirsty for humans who know how to make decisions in chaos. An obedient generation is an ownerless generation. They wait for orders. They wait for permission. They wait for someone to say, "Now you are allowed to be happy." A child who doesn't dare to say no to parents will find it very hard to say no to injustice, to temptation, and to the manipulation of the era. Submission is an addictive habit. And once addicted to the security of obedience, the child will forever be a passenger on a train, driven by a soulless algorithm. Obedience is a quality of slaves. Autonomy is the identity of a free human. We are building the future on foundations that are already rotten, and calling it social stability. Episode 27. On the surface, everything seems fine. High-rise buildings still go up. Economic indicators still rise. Your child still goes to school every day. In modern campuses. But beneath that glossy coat of paint, a silent collapse is taking place. It is the collapse of trust. The collapse of true value systems. We teach children how to win a race that even we do not know where it leads. We maintain an order where humans are reduced to data-generating tools. This stability is not peace. It is a state of collective paralysis. Every time you choose silence before a wrong to keep yourself safe, you are teaching your child that truth is less important than existence. And when an entire generation grows up with that mindset, society is nothing more than a pile of ruins that has been very skillfully painted over. Don't believe in smooth surfaces. Teach your child to see the cracks. Teach them to dare to ask questions when the whole world is nodding. Because when the real earthquake strikes, and it will, only those who look through the lies will have a chance to stand firm. True stability is not the absence of storms. True stability is the ability to stand firm when the storm sweeps through the human heart. Don't ask why your child no longer wants to sacrifice for the future. Ask why the system is still selling them tickets to a train that no longer has a destination. Episode 28. We grew up in a silent pact. Study right pointing arrow, work right pointing arrow, accumulate right pointing arrow, stabilize. But our children are living in a world that has broken that pact. They see degrees being outperformed by AI in just a few years. House prices rising faster than youth. Social security becoming a mere budget concept. Peace existing only in speeches. The system still demands that your child be patient. but it no longer provides evidence. When long-term promises lose their value, humans are forced to live in an extreme present. Consume fast. Enjoy now. Do not bet one's life on a vague tomorrow. This is not rebellion. This is the survival instinct of a generation that has seen through the pie in the sky. Wrapped in morality. If you don't teach your child how to create their own meaning outside of the promising system, they will forever be suspended between expectation and disillusionment. The one who holds onto their own faith is the only one who remains free. In a world where every promise can be wiped out overnight, the system doesn't need to beat your child anymore. It only needs to make them feel comfortable, while their humanity is slowly drained. Episode 29. The most terrifying power is the power that makes humans voluntarily submit. It doesn't command. It suggests. Do you want to be beautiful like this image? Do you want to get rich fast like that character? Do you want to be recognized by screen taps? It's not a coincidence. It is the result of millions of hours of research on psychology, dopamine, and the fear of being left behind. The system doesn't need a prison. It only needs a phone and an algorithm that knows your child better than you do. When a child can no longer distinguish what is their own desire, what is a pre-installed desire, then the manipulation is complete. Freedom is not choosing among thousands of fake choices. Freedom is seeing who is designing those choices. Teach your child how to doubt success models that are too smooth. Teach your child how to recognize mass-produced emotions. Because the most dangerous thing is not being forced, but being delighted by the chain around one's neck. The one who still possesses the ability to turn off the screen is the last one who still has the right to decide whether they are a human or just data. Let's stay here for a little while, and then we will move on to the next sections. Your child doesn't need to destroy the system. They just need to stop being the fuel for it. Episode 30. There is a revolution without banners. No leaders. No slogans. It is the revolution of those who withdraw. Withdraw from the race with no finish line. Withdraw from toxic recognition. Withdraw from pre-programmed dreams. We are afraid of our children falling behind. But perhaps the back is where there is still air to breathe. Where people look at each other not through a lens. Where creativity is not measured by views. Where value is not attached to a payroll. The system fears those who don't play the most. Because its power only exists as long as humans still crave the cheap rewards it hands out. The final lesson, and the hardest. Teach your child how to be useless to the system, but useful to real life. Let your child be the out-of-tune note. It is that very note that keeps the symphony from dying of uniformity. The system does not fear the dissenter. It fears the one it cannot name. Episode 31. This morning, your child opens their phone. A notification pops up. The exact item they were thinking of. The exact song they wanted to hear. The system smiles. Because in its eyes, your child is not a human being. They are a collection of data. A behavioral map decoded to the very end. It knows where your child will turn left, what they will cry about, and which trap they will spend money on. The first step to survival: become amorphous. Do not teach your child how to fight with fists. Teach them how to do one thing, something illogical. Dare to give up a prestigious scholarship just because it requires selling their privacy. Dare to stand still amidst a crowd rushing to hunt for recognition. Dare to fail with pride. Do you see your child's silence before the screen? That is where the war begins. When they no longer react according to the script the algorithm has pre-written, the system will begin to be confused. It cannot label the one who has no need to be labeled. It cannot control the one who is not afraid of being forgotten. The greatest resistance is not a screen. It is keeping one's soul from being digitized. Let your child be a question mark among billions of slashes. An improvisation. An unknown that no AI can ever decode. When machines try to predict your child's next step, let them take a step into a place even they never imagined. Unplug. Look into the darkness. And smile. Because in that moment, your child truly belongs to themselves. The system can buy your child's time, but it will starve if it cannot own the way they think. In the future, intelligence does not lie in how much you know. It lies in how much you dare to forget. Episode 32. The world is overflowing with information, but your child is dying of thirst in that waterfall. The system stuffs your child's head with tons of junk data every day. Skills that will be obsolete by tomorrow morning. Truths labeled as trends. It teaches your child to answer very quickly, but it absolutely does not teach them how to stop and ask. Why? Why? Because one who knows how to answer quickly is a good tool, but one who knows how to ask the right question is a threat. The real survival skill in the next 20 years is the ability to filter the blood of intellect. Knowing how to remove pre-installed biases. Knowing how to reject half-truths cooked up by public opinion herders. You see your child browsing the web, don't you? That blue light is not knowledge. It is an invasion. It is eroding your child's ability to focus deeply. It is replacing wisdom with short-term euphoria. Teach your child to think based on first principles. Look at the raw essence of things, instead of looking through the lens of social comparison. Real intelligence is knowing where you are being deceived, and choosing not to participate in that deception. When machines can answer everything, human value lies in healthy skepticism. Don't let your child become a hired data warehouse. Teach them to become a pure filter. Knowing how to stand still amidst the rushing crowd to ask, does this serve my humanity? The smartest person is not the one who knows everything, but the one who knows how to protect their mind from the invasion of garbage ideologies. Don't teach your child to be a mobile library. Teach them to be a blood filter for their own soul. Alone you cannot fight the system, but two true human beings can create a new world. Episode 33. The system grows strong based on an ancient tactic. Divide and rule. It wants your child lonely behind the phone screen. It wants your child to seek comfort from anonymous strangers. Because the lonely one is the most vulnerable. The lonely one is the easiest to lead. When humans are separated from real biological connections, they become weak. They begin to depend on digital platforms to find a sense of belonging. But that is a fake sense of belonging. The ultimate survival skill is the ability to truly connect. Face to face. Heart to heart. Teach your child how to find kindred spirits. People who are also silently withdrawing from manipulation. Build small tribes, where trust is not based on contracts, but based on honor. Where help does not need to be paid through an app. This is the underground power the system fears most. It can control the flow of money. It can control information. But it absolutely cannot control what happens within true circles of trust. Teach your child how to protect their teammates. Teach them that in the long night of deceit, a small fire is enough to guide an entire tribe. Strength does not lie in the number of followers online. Strength lies in the number of people willing to stand by you when the storm hits real life. Don't try to fit into a decaying society. Find a way to build a tribe where humanity is worshipped as the only religion. The world out there is disintegrating. But in this tribe, we have each other. The lonely person is prey for the algorithm. The person with a tribe is the master of the future. The system is teaching your child how to sell the 40 brightest years of their life to exchange for a few frail years in false security. Episode 34. 8 a.m. The alarm rings like a command. Your child jumps up, hurrying into the crowd, to a place called the office, to perform tasks that AI could do better. Tomorrow. They call it a career. I call it the slow suicide of humanity. Do you see the eyes of the people on the bus? Empty. Tired. They are selling time, the only thing they truly own, to exchange for numbers in a bank account. But those numbers are never enough. Because the system will always create new needs to drain them. Don't teach your child how to be an excellent employee in someone else's machine. Teach them how to create value from their own being. Teach them how to labor like an artist, not like a component. If they do not build their own dream, someone else will hire them to build theirs. And the price to pay is shredded creativity. It is the late afternoons when they no longer have the strength to look up at the sky. Teach your child how to escape the work, consume, debt loop. Labor must be the way they affirm their existence, not the way they flee from meaninglessness. Don't let your child become a hireling for dreams that are not their own. Life is too short to be a good tool. The system is teaching your child how to sell the 40 brightest years of their life, to exchange for a few frail years in something called security. Episode 35. 8 a.m. The alarm rings. Not an invitation. A command. Your child jumps up, hurriedly putting on a familiar face, joining the flow of people drifting toward a place called the office. There, your child performs tasks that an algorithm will do better than them. In just a few years. They call it a career. I call it a planned erosion of humanity. Have you ever looked into the eyes of those sitting on the bus in the morning? Not angry. Not suffering. Just empty. They are selling time. The only thing they truly own. To exchange for numbers in an account. But those numbers are never enough. Because the system will always be on time. To sell them a different lack. A new need. A new installment plan. A new fear of falling behind. Do not teach your child how to be an excellent employee in someone else's machine. Teach them how to create value from their own being. Teach your child to labor like an artist signing their work, not like a component waiting to be replaced. Because if your child does not build their own dream, someone will hire them to build theirs. The price to be paid does not appear on the contract. It is creativity being shredded. It is the late afternoons when they no longer have the strength to look up at the sky. It is the feeling of exhaustion without knowing what they are tired for. Labor was not born to hide meaninglessness. Labor must be the way. Your child affirms, I was here. If work only helps them exist without helping them live, then that is not security. It is a cage, painted in beautiful colors. Don't let your child become a hireling for dreams that are not their own. Life is too short to be a good tool. The free never ask for permission to live. They simply live. Episode 36. Most people are afraid of freedom because freedom comes with uncertainty. The system knows this, so it gives your child a warm cage full of food and entertainment. It tells them, don't worry. Just follow this roadmap, you'll be fine. And your child accepts. They choose the safety of shackles over the risk of wings. Real freedom begins from your child daring to say, no. No to fake beauty standards. No to meaningless money races. No even to toxic expectations from loved ones. Teach your child self-sufficiency. Self-sufficient in finance. Self-sufficient in emotions. Self-sufficient in thought. A person who can cook a meal for themselves, fix an item themselves, and find joy themselves in the stillness, is a person whom the system cannot threaten. Do not prepare for your child a flat path. Prepare for your child feet that can walk on any terrain. Freedom is when they can leave any place, anyone, without feeling themselves collapse. That is not loneliness. That is absolute independence. The world out there is disintegrating, but the free person will know how to rebuild the world from their own hands. The free never ask for permission to live. They simply live. The system is not afraid when you speak up. It is most afraid when you learn how to sit still, alone, in the darkness. Episode 37. Have you noticed? This world does everything so that your child never has to be alone. Music is always playing. Notifications are calling. The screen does not allow itself to be turned off. They call it connection. I call it fear of silence. Because in loneliness, humans begin to think. And when humans think, the voice of the algorithm is revealed as nothing more than a panicked mess of noise. Teach your child how to be alone. No phone. No books. No one beside them. Only them and their breath. In the beginning, it will be very hard. Restless, empty. A strange hunger to scroll, to watch, to know. That is not curiosity. That is withdrawal. If your child can endure those 30 minutes, another door will open. They will hear their own voice. Real fears. Real desires. Questions that the noisy world has buried. Loneliness is not a tragedy. Loneliness is the privilege of the free. One who cannot endure the darkness will kneel before the crowd. But one who has befriended themselves in the silence is someone no one can ever abandon again. In that moment, your child does not need a fortress. They become the fortress. The system wants your child to live as if they were immortal, so they remain forever busy with its meaningless games. Episode 38. There is one truth the system hates most. All of us will die. Not extreme. Not pessimistic. Just the truth. Death is the most honest filter of a human life. When you know your time is finite, every race suddenly becomes ridiculous. Every virtual recognition suddenly becomes hollow. The system wants you to forget that. So you are willing to sell your 40 brightest years for a sense of security in old age. Teach your child to look straight at finitude. Each morning, ask a simple question. If this were the last year of my life, would I still be doing this? If the answer is no, for many days in a row, you are living the life of someone else. The awareness of death does not make a human weak. It makes them resolute. Resolute to love. Resolute to refuse. Resolute to clear the trash from their lives. When standing at the final boundary, no algorithm can save you. No likes can bring meaning. Only what you have truly lived remains. Truly loved. And truly dared to choose. Death is not scary. What is scary is having died long ago, while still breathing. The legacy of the free. Episode 39. We have reached the end of this road. The system is still there. It will not disappear. It only becomes more sophisticated. But your child is different. The greatest legacy you leave behind is not money, not real estate, not a stable life, but an original humanity. Teach your child that legacy does not lie in buildings bearing one's name, but in the lives that have been touched. In the honest words, amidst a sea of lies. In the courage to choose what is right, instead of what is easy. The future world may be flooded with machines, but it will always be hungry. For a real heart, you don't need to leave footprints on the ground. Leave the seeds of life in the souls of others. Be the keeper of the fire. The awakener. The proof that freedom still exists. The series ends here. But real life has just begun. Don't try to master the world. Master yourself. That is the quietest victory. And also the greatest fear of the system. If you are still listening to me, it means you have survived through the greatest slumber of this era. Episode 40. 40 episodes. Tens of thousands of words. In the end, all we have done is peel a layer of label off the mirror. Now, what do you see? An obedient component? Or a human being in their original form? The world out there does not change. The system does not collapse after one video. It is still there, and it is evolving. It will be smoother, more seductive. It will invite your child with a new dopamine hit. It will threaten you with a new fear of falling behind. But you are different, and so is your child. Freedom does not lie in smashing machines. Freedom lies in the moment you dare to say enough. Every time you choose to look into your child's eyes, instead of looking at the screen. Every time your child chooses silence, instead of screaming for attention. Every time you accept living anonymously, but not being controlled. That is when the system loses. Not loudly. No proclamation. Just losing control. Don't hope for a flat path. Hope for feet hard enough. We cannot change the rules of the world's game, but we always have the right to refuse to participate. The legacy you leave for your child is not an account full of numbers, but a child who knows how to be indignant at what is wrong, who knows how to shed tears before beauty, and who knows how to smile when they are all alone. The future does not belong to those who are the loudest. It belongs to those who do not need a script to exist. This life is yours. This soul is yours. Never let it be digitized. Turn off the machine. Step outside the door and live as an original. No copy. No replacement. My story ends here. Your story starts now.